My name is Milan and I'm from Serbia.
It's Remy from Vietnam.
I'm Aga, well, Agnieszka really, but try to pronounce that. I'm from Poland, but I've been living in Manchester, UK for 2.5 years.
I am from New England in the United States, born and raised in New Hampshire, but currently living in Boston.
I am currently in Brazil. I'm isolating with my mom and my dad back home. As you can see, I'm in my childhood bedroom.
I'm originally Italian, but I was not living in Italy during the lockdown because I've been living in the Netherlands, in Rotterdam, for 5 years.
I am from Georgia, but currently I live in Poland. I actually managed to come back from Georgia just a few days before the quarantine started in both countries.
Coronavirus caught me in China. So I was here when it all started, and I didn't fly back to Macedonia. I didn't go home.
In the beginning of March, our government introduced that we were not allowed anymore to go to work, and I will probably not be allowed to go back to my office until the end of this year. So that will be quite a long time for me to work from home.
I was in Indonesia. First, I was in Vietnam, and we heard about the schools not opening on time after the New Year's holiday, and my friend and I, we left from Vietnam to Indonesia.
I was in China. I'm still in China. There's the big ass mall behind me, and they do all the dancing out there around 8 o'clock at night. So good luck trying to sleep early. It's a bunch of aunties just getting their pump on.
My friend and I left China to Macau, which is in south of China, on January 22nd. At that time, the virus was only in Wuhan, and we just knew that there's a virus in China. We realized that Macau is not like what we heard. The shops were all closed, the transportation was very slow, there were barely buses or cabs on the street.
I was actually on a 6-month trip around Southeast Asia and on our way to New Zealand and Australia. We were in Bali at the time, and then we had to fly back into Boston, and that is where we quarantined for about 3 months and didn't see anyone, so it was a very hard adjustment.
On January 27th, we got in Phnom Penh and then took a taxi to Siem Reap. And 2 days later in Siem Reap, we got this email from the airline that our flight from Phnom Penh to Shanghai is cancelled due to the virus. We went to Khorun Sangland. Then we decided to stay there until the time we are allowed to come back to China, because the borders were all closed. There were no flights to China.
Then I came home to St. Petersburg, Russia, and I was with my family. But most of the time my family is at the farm, but I can't really go because at first I had a bunch of dentist appointments I had to go to because, 3 years without a dentist is not good for your teeth. Well, most of the time I'm staying alone at the apartment.
I was quarantining with my boyfriend and his brother because we sold all of our stuff and got rid of our apartment to go travel. So we are lucky enough that we had a space here at my boyfriend's brother's house.
I lived here at home in my apartment together with my boyfriend. In the beginning, we were both quite scared 24/7 together, and also working and hoping that we were not going to annoy each other. But it's actually quite fun. I'm happy to have him around, obviously. I can imagine that quarantine for a few months all by yourself is quite challenging.
I was alone, 100% alone during this whole time. The end of January, February, and March, everything was just locked down. I didn't really leave my apartment at all. I was kind of dealing with the quarantine for 4 months by myself. It was just me and myself and my sock puppets that I made, just trying to keep myself sane.
It lasted too long. So it was 2.5 months officially. At the worst period, we weren't allowed to go out more than 1 hour in 2 days.
Quarantine routine was regular. like sitting and planting our garden and preparing what we would eat after, watching Netflix, spending time with I have 4 dogs.
Time didn't exist. It became like a weird blur. There was a point in April that I genuinely thought it was March. As the months rolled on, it just divulged into like 4 a.m. Who cares? Like whatever. What? Doesn't none of it matters. Nothing matters anymore.
If the weather was nice, I would go on my balcony. Well, really, it's a rain gutter, but I made it all nice and pretty. Then we would eat dinner. Matthew would cook because Matthew cooks in our relationship.
The first month it was mostly diving, and when I came back, the first 2 weeks I did nothing, absolutely nothing. I slept till like 3 in the afternoon, wake up around 11, I walk the dog, I have to measure my cat's sugar because my cat has diabetes.
Я занималась растяжкой, училась. Сейчас стараюсь внести спорт в свою жизнь. Сидела на миллионе диет. Похудела, кстати, за карантин. Вот, на килограмм 7 даже. Так что я не из тех, кто выйдет из карантина с огромной попой.
It was waking up late, making breakfast, sitting on the couch all day, watching TV, eating snacks, eating a lot. So, no routine.
I don't really know why I could naturally wake up really early in the morning, knowing that I have nothing to do outdoors but to stay home. Thanks to starting a day earlier, I've noticed a random man across the street. He always sits in this window across from my balcony and smokes. Looks so hot.
After 10 days, we were like, it's not possible this way. We can survive here because $53 for the bungalows, and then the meals were like every day $20 each of us. We talked to the manager, and he was this very beautiful soul that we're like, okay, you stay in these bungalows and just pay $25. And it helped us a lot, but it wasn't enough. So we decided to ask the guys in the bar restaurant there called Bodega if we can work there. We were working like 12 hours a day. It was hard work. I learned to cook a lot of stuff. I learned how to make a lot of shakes, a lot of like drinks, and a lot of different kind of coffee. And besides, I met a lot of people, good friends. I found a lot of good friends.
I stay at home. I do exercise every day, and I draw some pictures. These are the pictures I draw during the quarantine. Can you see?
I've been enjoying myself so much at home. I started to cook more for myself. My movie watch list that has been sitting there for years are now getting unlisted one by one.
I took the habit of taking my bike and having super nice bike trips around Rotterdam.
I'm in a book club, so we introduced kind of a presentation things. So every week one of us had to present something about a topic, and it could be anything, just to keep each other amused and also keep on learning things. My presentation was about dinosaurs, and we had Impressionism, the Guinness Book of Records.
Мы поженились прямо перед карантином. Мы отменили наш медовый месяц. У нас должен был такой, уже из-за коронавируса, он должен был быть очень скромным в Питере, но мы все отменили, и, собственно, весь наш медовый месяц прошел в Москве, в однокомнатной квартире.
We went on a night dive. It was completely dark, and there was a storm on the surface, and you could see when the lightning strikes, you could see that the ocean gets a little bit brighter. If you turn off your flashlight, you can see the plankton, and that felt like you're in space, like you're in the middle of nowhere in the vacuum, and you're weightless because you're in the water, and you have this sparkling plankton all around you. That was so cool.
I did do a lot of singing and practicing.
I also started to gain a few new skills regarding making art and making jewelry, like out of clay. So I'm learning to sculpt, and that's really, really fun.
The two hobbies that I was talking about and I started were playing ukulele and starting to read again.
During our stay on Koh Samui Island, I learned how to swim. I'm one of those people who are really afraid of water. I have this water phobia and I couldn't help it, but like staying around 2 months on this island made me forget about my fear and learn how to swim.
I feel like my photography game has kicked it up a notch. Also, making breakfast. I don't know if that's a skill.
We decided to build a small patio area. I always was really bad with plants, but now I've got roses and herbs and other plants, so it's something new I learned and I'm still learning.
I tried to keep myself busy. I took 2 online courses, started a 3rd one but never finished it.
I got my EFR, Emergency First Responder certificate. Oh, and also cooking. I've been cooking a lot and got cinnamon buns recipe to the T. Poached eggs, that was a difficult one. Poached eggs with hollandaise sauce.
Some of my foreign friends shared a few discrimination stories that happened during this period because of the corona.
It happens once at the very beginning, at the end of February somehow, when they already know that in Italy the situation was really bad. I was on the train and I was talking in Italian at the phone, and I realized that in the time of 25 minutes, the 2 people that were sitting next to me, they just moved out from the train carriage.
As the months rolled on, the narrative changed here. The news was saying that like it came from the States. It was like an attack from America. Anybody from America was seen as like an enemy, and still kind of is. Like if you walk down the streets here as a foreigner, people will put their masks on or like move their kids out of the way. The mall actually across there in the basement, they have a market that you can go and get stuff in. The guards were there and they were just regular guards with masks, and they check your temperature and you go in. And then it got to the point where they just wouldn't let me in anymore because I was a foreigner. It was really like surreal because it was the same guy I was dealing with. At the beginning of March, it was just this guard that I saw, and I was like, hey, what's up? And I talked to him in Chinese, and then it was no problem. And then all of a sudden one day, he's like, you can't come in. I'm like, why? And he's like, oh, we just don't know where you've been, what you're doing. I'm like, you know where I've been. I've been here the whole time.
Once in the supermarket, when the cashier thought that I was getting too close to her.
When I first came home, because everyone knew I was in China and knew what was happening in China, the minute they would see me would say, oh, I hope you didn't bring the virus with you, because at the time South Africa didn't have any cases of the virus. So it was really annoying, especially when people say it as a joke.
I was scared of all the door handles or, elevator buttons.
My friend got sunstroke, and at this time this hotel was checking our temperature every time we wanted to go out and we wanted to come back, and we were supposed to put on our mask, but checking on the temperature was something very stressful. Now that my friend had this fever and wasn't able to leave the hotel, and I was somehow going out, buying the food, taking it to the hotel.
I got sick and I thought it was the virus, and I got super scared because I had fever, and I went to the hospital, and there I got even more scared, so the temperature went even higher. Turns out it wasn't the corona, it was just a regular flu, but yeah, I was super scared.
I was not panicking a lot. The thing that I was mostly scared about was my family, which is far away from me, so if anything happens, then I will most likely not have a chance to go there right away.
My grandmother got sick and she had all the symptoms of the coronavirus, but because she was in quite a good condition, she's never been tested. But we were quite scared for my grandfather because he was not sick or anything, and he was also not very old. He was 78, but he had heart failure things and so on. And he got sick, so my grandmother got better. Then my grandfather got sick. 5 days after they diagnosed the corona, he passed away. I have been able to see him, fortunately, but with a mask, with a suit, with gloves, a hair mask, glasses. Yeah, so that was really bizarre actually. So it was kind of sad knowing that my grandfather in his last days, he only saw people totally covered up.
There were 8 of us from Guangzhou. I think we were all coming from abroad. We weren't allowed to talk to each other or even talk to other people. In hotel, we had to take our temperatures 2 times a day. I had a little bit of high temperature and I was so worried if these guys are gonna check on me and if I report my temperature like the real temperature, 37.4, they for sure gonna take me to the hospital. So what I did was not telling the truth.
The sale of alcohol and tobacco products was prohibited. Now, I don't know about other countries, but this is quite unique for us.
I think the worst part in everything that in all this quarantine, lockdown, self-isolation was that there was like no clear guidelines, no clear schedule.
The cases are going down, more people are being released from the hospitals, less people are getting sick, which is good. The quarantine is over officially and everything is back to normal.
It's pretty good now. We can travel in the country and the price is really cheap now, so we can have chance to, explore our country.
After 2 weeks of staying in the apartment, forced to stay in the apartment, we were told that there is this app, and if we fill up the form and get the health code, then we have no problem hanging out in the public places.
It only changed me in that perspective that I could be by myself for longer periods of time.
What I learned during the quarantine is the fact that I must give more space to myself and to the things that I like. I was always commuting, always going fast, always taking the train, and I was kind of always stressed, let's say. I realized that you can live without being stressed.
If not for this, I would never start diving. Also, I haven't seen my family for 2 years, and I came home and I saw them, and I saw a lot of them.
I made so much progress with my work and made some amazing things that I'm really happy with.
I hope it never happened because many people die because of the virus.
I hope the virus taught us a lot about how to dedicate more time to ourselves and take things slowly, how to reconsider our way of living and consuming.
If I could erase this episode out of my life, would I? Not a chance, man. This has been like a once-in-a-lifetime kind of thing. Once in like every 4 lifetimes, I think, with like a pandemic hitting the world like this, like Black Plague style. It's a tragedy. Like, if I could change it for the people who've suffered and who have died, for sure. Like, I don't wish that upon anybody. But for me personally, would I change this? Nah. This is gonna forever be a great bar story, you know?
I would never erase it. It was a great experience, and I am very grateful.
I wouldn't change it because I learned a lot of things, and this is the best and worst experience that I have had so far. And I grew a lot, so I would not change that.